There's not $1 million of benefit out here, and the females don't offer $1 million of femininity or reward.
Never want to live together.
Sure, I'll be with someone, but I don't need him to live in my house.
Down the street.
So why would a man go make a few $1 million or work himself to gain $5 million in value when to get with a female who's bringing $50 of femininity?
I'm looking for a man who's willing to be in a monogamous relationship with me while he lives in his own separate house.
We also live in separate places. When I go to see him, love to see him. When it's time to leave, bye-bye, see you soon.
To get with a female who's bringing $50 of femininity.
I really do want to find a good man. It's just hard to find a man who's better at being a man than I am.
How do we pronounce that name?
May.
Hello, May. All right, May. Now, what's on your mind?
When you have a degree and when you have all your education, that's wonderful. You have memorized a bunch of crap. Wonderful. Now you need to memorize how to get this money from him and save yours. You understand?
Brother, is the goal to have family or to just like impregnate like Elon does? Elon Musk.
There's no reason to marry a woman if you're not going to have children. There's zero reason.
Do you have any children?
No children.
Okay. Do you want to have children in the future?
I do not.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, just one. Okay. I got to ask those. Oh, just two. Whew. We got to ask. Oh, just three. Okay. I'm scared to say just.
There's no reason to get married to a woman if you're not going to have children with her because you're beginning the, quote, family process. But in reality, you're not going to make a family because there's not going to be any children. So she can be your companion without you ever marrying her. That's not a requirement.
I'm not having kids.
What you mean you're not having kids?
I'm not having kids. Why would I?
I'm asking you.
I want to have kids. I don't see any benefit. You have a kid and your life becomes about the kid. I want my life to be about me.
One of the best pieces of advice that my fiance and I recently received for our engagement season is this: stay far away from each other. Yeah, we recently went on a weekend trip to Houston for a Christian conference. And before I even get off the plane my mom's texting me like, hey, I know y'all grown and y'all engaged and y'all in Houston, but the same hotel room, be careful. I told my mom, I was like, you don't gotta worry about that. We're not in the same hotel room. We got 2 different rooms. I see a lot of online discourse about me right now because people don't like the fact that I'm talking about God now, but I used to be a bottle girl. But let me clear up the confusion. That's the whole premise of Christianity, boo.
That doesn't really incentivize a man to quote unquote have a small family because that's really the only reward that he gets for entering into a marriage with a female is legacy and bloodlines. That's all he gets.
We did not kiss before we got engaged. When we were just seeing each other, dating, no kissing. Now that we're engaged, we give ourselves that leeway, but even that has to be very strict. No sex before marriage is for the engagement as well. Stay far away from that man until you get married, until you walk down the aisle.
Is legacy and bloodlines. That's all he gets. So if he is wealth rich and genetically poor, what in the world was he working for? Let me get all this excess capacity for nothing. That's literally not the way it works, and that's literally not the way we're biologically wired. What's happening today is for most men are getting into situations and they find out later it's not as desirable.
Salute to Jason Black. At times we butt heads, particularly about Passport Bros being a solution to the problem that he's speaking about, but the one he's speaking about is one that is front and center. If you vilify what motivates men to overproduce, then how do you get men to continue to overproduce? You saw very early in this video that there are young ladies that are celebrating the fact that they're taking away the things that make men want to work hard to have a family, and essentially saying you have no right to want these things. So if a man knows that he's not going to have a chance to get married, say, like we saw in the video with Amani Talks, she's essentially told her husband, I'm not going to have any kids for you.
I'm not having kids.
What you mean you're not having kids?
I'm not having kids.
Because I want to do what I want to do with my life, and I am a Reformed Christian, so I'm not going to have any relations with you before I get married.
No sex before marriage is for the engagement as well. Stay far away from that man until you get married, until you walk down the aisle.
If you're a high-earning man, and I'm not saying I have anything against Christianity, I'm saying that I would have preferred a woman to have that way of thinking when she was 18.
My mama said, you going out every weekend. I said, but I don't got no kids. Would you rather me have kids? She said, no. I said, okay, well, just be glad I am cute, safe, and living my best life. Because yes, I should be going out every weekend. I should be going out as often as I can, actually, because I am young and no kids. That's really the main thing. Having no kids. Yeah. Let me be free, Ma. Let me be free.
Before she spent her 20s and early 30s enjoying herself and then making her husband pay the highest price.
Let me be free, Ma. Let me be free.
Because he's going to be the one that's going to have to produce. And he's the one that's getting penalized the most.
Yeah, I think the incentive for women is probably, I mean, I'm talking about regular women, not weird, crazy women or off the rocker. But I think for productive women, marriage is the incentive to have children. And
yeah, because marriage is an instant bump in income for females. So there's the difference. If you remove the financial benefit component for women only, when women go online and talk about, quote, marriage, they don't mean marriage. They mean lifestyle inflation at somebody else's expense.
Out here putting in houses, cars, starting them businesses, putting them through school, and you bragging about getting f***ed? Yeah, you lost the plot completely.
That's what they mean. They never say marriage as what I'm going to do for a man. You don't see Facebook posts and Instagram posts about what they're doing for man.
Do you know how good it feels to come home and just focus on eating my burrito instead of hearing about a man talk about his day that I don't give a about?
When women talk about marriage, the only thing they talk about is what they're getting. They don't talk about what they're giving the men ever.
I only like men who send me money and do things for me.
So this is a big con job that's going on. So once again, women get their benefits up front. The man has to wait for his if it ever occurs. If you marry a woman and only have one child, once again, it's like, was this really necessary? Because he's going to put a lot of money into this, a lot of time, most of the rest of his life.
I found this to be a very interesting part of the podcast because Jason Black, without prompting, brings up the idea that it's a kind of failure for a man, a high producing man, or a man that's capable of being a high producer to only have one child. Because let's be honest, if you're with a young lady who's, instead of giving her most fertile, sexiest years to the club and to a lot of other men, and instead she's giving them to her husband, who may be starting out at 50,000, but he sees 3 children and a woman he loves very much at home, then he's going to be pulled into overproduction, as has traditionally has happened. And so he may go from 50K to 75K to 150K to 300K because that's what motivates men to overproduce. But instead of motivating men in that way, there's a kind of pulling that away from men and essentially saying, you're supposed to overproduce because you're a man, and I'm not going to have kids with you, and I'm not going to live with you, and I don't even want to have a lot of relationship with you. I'm going to make you wait until we get married, even if I gave my 20s and 30s to other men, because that's what we're supposed to do, kind of moving the goalpost. And of course you can understand the trouble with this in motivating men in this ever-changing landscape. Something he's about to illustrate to May.
Let me find out here. You said you all have one child. How old?
She's 9.
Okay. And how old?
Yeah.
Might I ask, how old are you?
I am 48. Yeah.
Okay. You waited till your 40s to have a child.
Damn, yeah. Yeah, because that's expensive and it's a big responsibility.
How long? How long have you and your husband known each other?
We've been married for 20 years.
I didn't ask that. How long have you known each other?
24 years.
There you go. Now that's the number I really want. There it is. So you've known him since your mid-20s.
Yeah, mid-20s. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. And we've been married for 24 years. We've been married for 20 years. We met 24 years ago. We've been married for 20 years. We didn't have a child until the last decade.
Yeah, because of economics. Yeah, economics. It's real. I mean, you have to afford children. I mean, quality of life.
You have a kid and your life becomes about the kid. I want my life to be about me.
I mean, it depends, because some people They don't mind being on food stamps and Medicaid and all this other stuff.
This part of the argument is very interesting because you're hearing an argument for I didn't want to be on Section 8 and be on food stamps instead of the idea of cutting back and maybe for 6 months or so letting my husband lead the finances and we make some sacrifices. Instead, it's I wanted to get my degree when I wanted to get it, which they're going to have a more clear conversation about here.
Well, kids cost a lot. They really do. I mean,
not back in 2008. It didn't. We had to
we had to
finance.
get our income up. We had to buy a house. We had to do a lot of stuff, set up things financially correctly. I was getting my education, you know, and he's educated already.
I was getting my education. There you go.
I got 4 degrees, so yeah.
Exactly.
Ironically, I quit the PhD because my what do you call it? My specialist for infertility, she said, give up the PhD or you're not having a kid, and I gave it up. So I got a specialist.
Right. So even your OB-GYN tells you that, oh, y'all haven't had children because the wife is prioritizing school.
Not the wife. We both had a vision for how much money we needed to make.
Ma'am, you're the one on the biological clock there. So you just said
she
told you that if you go for a PhD, you just said that now. So
yeah, I did.
That's not we, that's you. Let's be clear. That's why I asked you now, how many degrees in how many different fields?
I got a bachelor's and 3 graduate degrees in education.
Okay, so all of those are in the same field.
Yeah.
So,
I was an English teacher.
So she kept going back to school.
Correct, to increase the income.
See,
but I got to contribute my part, don't I? Don't I have to pull my part of the income?
Yes, and your part of it is how many children are we having? Because at the end of the day, just understand this, and I'm not trying to be denigrating here, but I'm just making this as a teaching moment to everyone. When you are in your last 24 hours of life, you will not be wishing you had gotten more degrees.
Agreed.
You'll be wishing you had more children. You'll be wishing you spent more time with your husband. You're not going to be wishing you spent more time at school or more time at the office. You'll be wishing you had spent more time with your family.
One of the criticisms that you'll often hear about this space is why aren't men out doing quote unquote man stuff instead of sitting on these podcasts talking about life?
But when did men start talking? Because look, growing up, my granddaddy, my uncles, my big cousins, they didn't have all them opinions. You know, we got men out here writing Facebook statuses, making podcasts, all kind of stuff. Don't y'all got oils to change and lawns to mow, hanging up your grandbaby swing set? What's with all the yapping?
And to put it simply, one of the reasons why we have these conversations on these podcasts is for moments like this one.
And what I'm saying is you prioritized your career. This is an age-old story. You prioritized your career. You all could have been a good working class family. You have your children, and you'll catch up on the career later because you can go get a job anytime. You cannot be a mother anytime. You got a short window to be a mom. You got the rest of your life to go get a degree. Let's be real. Women only get a degree because that's the insurance policy.
You know, the easy thing to think might be, yeah, this man is going to figure it out for me. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's going to buy me a Birkin. And oh my God, yes, there are tricks out there. I have met him. I have seen him. I love him. God bless him, truly. But the absolute best thing you can do for yourself, instead of depending on someone else, is simply just sitting up in them people's schoolhouse and getting your credentials in order.
I really do want to find a good man. It's just hard to find a man who's better at being a man than I am.
Of course, I am not going to sit here and tell anyone that education is not important. It absolutely is important. But there are various kinds of educations. There's certainly one education where you go to a particular set of buildings where you stay there for a certain number of years and they give you a slip of paper saying that you were there and you studied this while you were there. There's also an education where you go on the internet and read certain books and you can essentially access the same amount of information. And instead of getting that slip of paper, you either have to prove to someone that you know that information or you just take that information and do something productive with it. Of course, there's other kinds of educations where you study some material and then you take an online test and then you get a certificate vouching for the fact that you understand that. And so as it comes in all kinds of shapes and forms, when you hear a young lady say, I'm more of a man than men are, there's nothing that explains the essence of a man more than sacrifice. And if you don't believe that, just look at what's going on in the Middle East and ask who's being asked to sacrifice themselves on both sides. It's men. Sacrifice means, of course, that sometimes it's your time, sometimes it's what you want to do, sometimes it's the order in which you want to do things. And what we see a lot from young ladies, especially modern young ladies, is that they want to do things in their order. The idea of, hey, I can get married and go back to school after I have 2 kids is not even in the cards. I've seen ladies of other races do this very easily, where they get married, they have 1 or 2 kids, and those kids get into primary school. They're going to school while the mom is doing online courses or even studying as a graduate student while she's raising 2 kids. It's not that order that many young ladies seem to want. I want to go to school in a linear fashion in my 20s and get my graduate degrees while I'm not married, and then I'll try and start a family if I even choose to do that at 35, 37, 40. And the saddest part about all of this is that no husband wants to see his 40-year-old wife on a delivery room table, fighting for her life and the life of his first or second child. That is a nightmare for men. What a man would much rather is his 23-year-old wife, his 25-year-old wife, his 30-year-old wife having their second, third, or fourth child, and knowing that it's a relatively safe pregnancy, and while she's at home taking care of a child, he is doing everything he can to make sure that he gives her and his children the best chance at a better life. And he may even be able to find a way to fund her going to graduate school during all of it. But if that order is something that many young ladies cannot stand to even consider giving a man, then they're essentially taking everything that a man wants off the table. I'm not going to live with you. I'm not going to give you kids while I'm very young and in my most healthy childbearing years. And I'm going to get a college degree to make sure that I don't even need you in the first place. And so guys don't go to bars, guys don't go out, and guys are getting tickets to go overseas because women are making it pretty darn clear. They don't want men and they don't need men. So why would men even approach them in the first place? Degrees matter more, right? Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you next video. Take care, guys.